Hi, this is Chris Foreman from Madness, and you're listening to the Stateside Madness podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Stateside Madness podcast, the one and only podcast of the official Madness American fan service. I'm Lori, along with my co-host Polly, here to bring you news, reviews, and deep dives into the nutty sound of the British pop band Madness. Hello, and welcome back to the Stateside Madness podcast. I'm Lori.
And I'm Polly.
And today we're bringing you part 2 of the Liberty of Norton Folgate, Madness's magnum opus. So in part 1, we went over the album tracks, and I think that was a really good episode. I'm glad that we got to go in depth. Polly, is there anything that you want to throw in? Any feelings on the previous episode?
No, not so much.
Okay. Well, I mean, for us, it was about 10 minutes ago, but for our listeners, it was 2 weeks ago. We're recording this pretty far in advance. So in this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about tracks that were on the box set that weren't on the album release. And we're also going to talk about the Julian Temple documentary film, The Liberty of Norton Folgate, that was made along with this album. As we had learned in the last episode, so Madness had created their own label called Lucky 7. After they had released their single Sorry, then they started working on this concept album that would become The Liberty of Norton Folgate. Since they had their own label, this gave them a certain amount of freedom that they would not have had they been working for a major label. One of the things that this gave them the freedom to do was to sell pre-orders on their website for the box set of Liberty of Norton Folgate. And they started selling these, I believe it was in 2008. Now, don't quote me on that. The album hadn't been completed yet. In fact, they had really just kind of started recording it. There were a lot of changes and a lot of revisions. The boys were really being perfectionists. You know, they were revising the track order. They had something like, I think it was 22 tracks, and they had to whittle it down to be album length. So they really had to be playing around with like the song order, with the recordings. Because they were such perfectionists, this really took a while. This wasn't, they weren't adhering to a typical record label schedule. They say, okay, well, your release date is X. You have to have the album done by X. And I think that's a good thing, that they were really able to work with these songs and to perfect them. But then the downside was the release date kept getting pushed back. And the people that pre-ordered the box set, I think, were starting to get a little bit nervous. So what the band had done very early in 2009 is, to the people that had pre-ordered the box set, they released a preliminary 12-track kind of taster teaser, if you will, of some of the tracks that would later appear on The Liberty of Norton Folgate. They weren't all the finished versions. At least one of the tracks ended up being very different on the album, and the track order hadn't been decided on yet. But that was something that allowed the listeners to satiate their appetites a little bit, you know what I mean, for the music that they had paid for. Now, eventually, after much hemming and hawing and revision, they finally released The Liberty of Norton Folgate in October 2009. And what they did is they released the 15-track album, which Polly, you and I had talked about last episode. But then they also released a 3-disc box set. And in the box set, the tracks are at a slightly different order. The box set does include all 15 tracks that we talked about last time. But it also includes a number of additional tracks that were good, but maybe not quite good enough to make the cut for the 15. And then the 3rd disc includes a bunch of demos and also some live tracks from the Hackney Empire shows, which would become the documentary film. So I'm kind of rambling a little bit, and Polly's kind of giving me the wrap it up look. But the reason that I'm mentioning this now is because what we're going to listen to today are going to be tracks mostly from the box set. Now, not entirely, but mostly from that box set that would be on disc 2 that were not on the initial release. So if you bought just the standard 15 track release, you're not going to be hearing these songs. But there's some really good music here. So we wanted to go into that as well. So the first song we're going to listen to actually is not on the box set. Now, when I bought the digital download of the Liberty of Norton Folgate, I bought it from Amazon.com. And there were actually 16 tracks. Okay, so 15 was the 10-minute Liberty of Norton Folgate epic suite, right? Track 16 was Bittersweet. Now, this was also the B-side for the single, the NW5 single that they released in 2007. And it was recorded during the Dangermen sessions. So let's listen to Bittersweet.
I used to cry. I used to cry alone. Watch my face as I grow older. Reflect the world I've known. I used to wonder what it was that I did wrong. No amount of conversation could keep me holding on. The kind of love that I would need tasted too bittersweet to me.
Polly, how do you like that one?
Well, I already liked it because it's a cover of the Damien O'Neill. I think it's Damien. One of the O'Neills from the Undertones wrote that song. With the Undertones version, it was a real departure for them from poppy punk to, I guess, what you would just call up straight up pop ballad. And Madness then took that and made it a great deal more upbeat, and I think really added an awful lot to it. Not to mention, I think they cut the length of the song down by probably like 3 minutes. So it's a fantastic song. I think we've mentioned the Undertones once, if not twice now. And anybody who remembers that knows I'm a huge fan. So I was very happy to see Madness do a cover of them.
All right, so that again was not on the box set. That was in the digital download in some formats, including Amazon.com, and it was the B-side of the NW5 single. What's up next, Polly?
So what would be up next is a Suggs and Barson composition. It's Let's Go.
Painting the soles of your Dr. Martens white. Rolling up Hampstead High Street on a Saturday night. Black bombers blues and a packet of cigs. The Saturday nights of them early gigs. Bazooka Joe, Deaf School in Shannon R. Kilburn and the high roads, and we drove your daddy's car. Past proto-punks, hooligans and teddy boys. Pumping the funfair, rocking fairground reggae noise. Well, let's go. And let's go. Let's go. Come on and let's go.
So that's Let's Go. And it's as though they're polishing their name dropping skills on that. So they refer to Bazooka Joe, Deaf School, Sha-Na-Na, and Kilburn and High Roads all in that song.
Deaf School, that was Suggs's wife's band, Betty Bright.
That it was.
Yeah. And I remember Sha-Na-Na. Man, my dad used to love their show on TV. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So, the television variety show was a big part of the 70s. I watched that. The Jackson 5, Sonny and Cher. Man, the list goes on and on.
Barbara Mandrell and the Mandrell sisters. You remember their show?
I remember that. Yeah.
Whatever happened to variety shows? I mean, we have Saturday Night Live, but
I don't know that. And in fact, there's been a couple of basic cable television shows trying to revive the variety show genre.
maybe audiences in 2021 just don't have the patience for it. I mean, why sit through, a comedian and then a band and then, a juggler or whatever, when you can just go to YouTube and go right to what it is you want, right? I mean, we're all about instant gratification now. Maybe that's
I suppose you are right in that. And people are, I wouldn't say selective so much as, yes, I think they know what they want and they want it right then.
all right. Well, back to Let's Go. This was one of the tracks in the box set on disc 2, right?
That it was, yeah. So it's it's that sort of we're out and about teenagers on a Saturday night sort of thing. So that's referenced as bowling up Hampstead High Street on Saturday night, black bombers and booze and a pack of cigs. And Laurie, so this is apparently it just escapes nobody because Laurie in the note says that it is reminiscent of Henry Mancini's Peter Gunn theme, and referring to my notes, exactly the same thing. It's not even, I think, mildly, just a bit askew of Peter Gunn. I think that's exactly Peter Gunn.
Okay. So we both came to the same conclusion independently.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right. I really like the song, but I'm confused by the opening line, painting the soles of your Dr. Martens white. Doc Martens are expensive. I have had Doc Martens ruined by acrylic paint before. Why would you paint the soles of them white? Is that like an indication that you're in a gang or something? I don't know.
I don't know, but people paint docs all the time. But I don't know that I could speak to why they would paint soles white. Somebody out there is probably going to tell us.
I'm sure they will. I like this song, though. I think that this is a good quality song. I mean, I can kind of see where maybe it doesn't fit into the original 15, but it's still a good song in its own right. Don't you think?
I do agree with you on that.
Okay. So next up, this is another track from the CD box set. This is called Mission from Hell. Let's listen.
On a mission from hell, he goes unnoticed past all authority, armed to the teeth, an explosive with deranged motive for whole nations to grieve in disbelief. But don't tell me you can't read the telltale signs. Reported incidents of all your previous crimes. 'Cause I'm knocking at number 10. Knocking on the door again. Where the House of Lords deny you, the House of Horrors deprive you, where public opinion stands, and the public feeling seething. On a mission from hell, a total blank and disregard.
All right. So before I talk about what I think this song is about, Polly, what do you think of Mission from Hell?
I do like it, but it's a fairly disjuncted, if that's a word, song. It's it's definitely got that brill building Motown sound to it. Yet it's a fairly dark lyrically, and I think that's probably what you're getting at with what your thoughts of the theme of the song are.
Yeah, I mean, the lyrics really seem to be about a terrorist attack, don't they? He goes unnoticed past all authority, armed to the teeth, and explosive with deranged motive. I've heard this song many times, but this is the first time I'm really paying attention to the lyrics, which were written by Lee Thompson and Mike Barson. Wow, yeah, this is really, really bleak. Because I'm knocking at number 10. That's number 10 Downing Street, which is the reference of the British Prime Minister. I confess I did not know that. That's like the equivalent of us saying 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
All right, so the next one we're going to talk about, it would be Seven Dials. Let's take a listen.
Oh, won't you take a short walk with me? We'll stroll down to the Seven Dials, and by the light of the waning moon we'll see strange people and strange times. And what strange times? It really doesn't matter where I've been, I can only tell you what I've seen. And it may come now as some surprise to see what's really going on in where the rookeries and narrow alleys, 7 dials to count all the days, and of the stranger with inquiring face for.
All right, so that is a Suggs and Barson composition. That refers to 7 Dials, which is a road junction in the West End of London. And referring to Wikipedia, it says 7 streets converge at the roughly circular junction at the center, of which is a column bearing 6 sundials. The column had been commissioned for a late stage alteration of the plans from an original 6 roads to 7. There you go. That references the name. So what do you think about the song though, Lori?
You know, it's funny. It's a decent song, but for some reason, there's something about it that it just wipes from my memory after I've listened to it, right? And so I listened to it again a couple days ago to put together the information for this. And I thought, okay, yeah, this is good. And now as I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm struggling to call up in my mind because you and we edit in the music later. So you and I aren't actually listening to the music as our listeners are listening to it. I can't for the life of me remember it. I don't know what it is about this song. It's like the silence in Doctor Who, you know, it just hear it and it's just wiped from my memory. I don't know. Again, maybe this is, you know, maybe the pain meds from my broken leg are contributing to that. I don't know. I mean, it's good, but it's forgettable, I guess, literally. What do you think? What do you think?
So it does have a similar instrumentation and a break in there, similar to My Girl 2. Maybe it's not forgettable so much as it's a lesser attempt at the same style of music, depending, unless you don't like My Girl 2. But yeah, I mean, there's a reason why a lot of things don't make the cut on albums, and a valiant attempt, but maybe it's just not up there as being one of their better and more memorable ones in your case.
Was it memorable to you?
No, I had to get it out and listen to it again today.
Okay. All right. So then that takes us to our next song, which is The Hunchback of Toriano.
I spy, shuffling my way, the hunchback of Toriano, dipping in and out of unzipped places, while I'm witness to them shell-shocked faces. Now you're losing everything that meant anything for a quick return, but this time I've had enough. I'm blowing you up and I'm moving on apart. Oh, I guess you'll always be like a long lost friend to me. Ooh, I guess you'll always be the younger brother that was never to be.
So that was The Hunchback of Toriano. It was written by Lee Thompson and Woody Woodgate. What do you think of this one, Polly?
Well, I guess the first thing is right off the bat, it's got that high reverb, almost surf guitar sound to it. And I'm always in favor of hearing a little bit more of Chris. So I like it for that reason alone. But yeah, it's not one well, except for today when I pulled the album out and re-listened to a lot of stuff. It's not one I go back to an awful lot, but I think it's a solid song.
I had to look up Toriano, right? Because I'm thinking Torino, right? Which is Turin. No. It turns out Toriano Avenue is in Kentish Town, which is in NW5. So it fits with the theme of the album. But I'm thinking, is this about a heroin user? Well, since you've chosen to burn the spoon, I don't have time. No, neither the room. But this time, no, I can't bail you out. So, I mean, it sounds like that this is about somebody that is, well, burning the spoon. To me, that would be heroin. So I guess the hunchback is actually a drug user and has kind of gotten a bad reputation for being like, like the neighborhood druggie, I guess, and somebody that people want to stay away from. I don't know. That's my interpretation.
All right. So next up that we're going to talk about, it is Fish and Chips. It's a Chaz smash composition. Let's take a listen.
Have you taken off the waters? And have you found a pleasant glade? Will we take a pint of porter? Mine's a Pimm's and lemonade. Would you like a bag for 10, man? It's the nuts, it's premium grade. If you do, lally lob, boy, come and join the fish and chip parade.
All right, Lori. I'm going to let the listeners in on a little bit. Lori did up the notes for today's episode, and the little details underneath that we read off of sometimes. She has written, "Yeah, I got nothing." So, Lori, why do you got nothing on Fish and Chips?
It seems like it's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, I don't need to do any research. I don't need to. I mean, it's fish and chips, right? It's a goofy song. I mean, it's a fun song. I don't know that I need to listen to it over and over, but I mean, it is what it is. It is what it is. It's just a fun kind of interlude between some of the more serious Hunchback of Toriano, Mission from Hell. This kind of is a nice respite.
There you go. Yeah, it's a little sidetrack probably for them. You referenced the Beatles earlier. I would kind of sum this up as being Sergeant Smash's Nutty Farts Pub Band, probably.
Oh, and you do not dare tell me to edit that out, because that's staying in. That's good.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I do find myself very clever. All right. Well, we can be done with that. Let's go on to One Fine Day.
Sure had our dance, but before they bring on the clowns. One fine day when all of this, just one fine day, yes, all of this, before they're dancing on our graves, let's spend the time and
Polly, what do you think of One Fine Day?
I'm happy with the song. I can see where it didn't, it probably didn't jive with the rest of the album, which is probably why they left it out. Doesn't seem to have much to do with anything in the story, but you never know. They may have just done a bunch of recording to see where they could have meshed things together, and they decided on some other stuff. It's fair enough.
I really think that this is another one of those autobiographical songs. It seems like it's introspective of the entire band. They're taking stock of where they've been and where they're going. And I love the lyric, before they're dancing on our graves, let's spend time and money that we will never save. We've done all this. We've paid our dues. let's have some fun now. You know, let's spend the time and money that we've worked so hard to earn before we're dead, before they're dancing on our graves. And I like too, and I can kind of tie this back to 2 episodes ago where we interviewed Steve Martin. So Steve Martin again is the band's tour manager. And, you know, he was kind of talking about how there are certain things that they don't spare expenses on. And one of them is catering, you know, that they want to make sure that the band is well fed and that the bar is well stocked backstage, right? He said that their dressing rooms kind of look like an off license, which is a British name for a liquor store. And that really kind of is the same idea, you know, that, hey, we have worked very hard. Let's eat like kings. You know what I mean? Let's enjoy what we have. This is one of those things that's going to make our life a little bit more pleasurable. What do you think of it, Polly?
I guess I would just say yes to everything you had said there. Yeah, it
That's
does
good.
seem.
I wish my husband would learn that, but kidding, sweetheart. Love you.
Well, we've got like 1,800 miles between us. It's a little easier for me to do.
You know, I almost think, and I'm probably going to regret this as soon as I say this, I almost think I would rather have seen this track on the album than Rainbows. But
Sure.
you do raise a valid point, Polly, that it does kind of seem inconsistent with the rest of the themes of the band. So for me, it's a matter of personal preference. Liking the song better, that doesn't necessarily mean that it would have fit better with the overall theme. And I think that's kind of what you were saying when you said it really kind of doesn't fit. Yeah?
Yes, thanks for agreeing with me.
See, that's the secret now. You make them think that you agree with them. No, okay. All right. What's next?
All right, so the next song we'll talk about is The Kiss, and it is another Suggs and Barson composition.
It was a cold November evening as I walked into that bar. I saw you talking with your friend, so near and yet so far. Why did I feel I knew you? Why did I want to tell you when I know we haven't met? Don't know if you even saw me. Did you even see me? It was just a passing moment, but it felt like forever. I was like a drowning man whose whole life flashes before him. Except it was your life. I knew everything about you, even friends and places that I know I've never seen.
All right, so I know I can sum up what I think about it rather quickly. But Lori, why don't you take a crack at it first?
Well, there's definitely a tension there, isn't there? It's kind of this unrequited love or unrequited passion. I mean, maybe not even the word love, because it sounds to me like it's about meeting a stranger at a bar and just feeling this immediate longing and attraction. I'm under the impression from listening to the song, it's never really fulfilled, this idea of what might have been. So, I mean, yeah, there's a tension there. I mean, it's an interesting tension. It's not something I'm normally accustomed to in a Madness song. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think it serves as like the rough draft to Never Knew Your Name.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's very nearly identical thematically, and also that sort of pseudo disco beat going on to it. So yeah, that's all I got.
Okay. Well, so that's interesting then. So we have 2 here that kind of, we see the seeds of future Madness songs in a manner of speaking, right? We have this one, The Kiss, which I didn't make the connection, but now that you've said that, yes, I totally see it. Never Knew Your Name, which is on Wee Wee CC Ja Ja Da Da. And then also, what was the other one that you made that connection with? 7 Dials. 7 Dials, My Girl Too, right? Which was another song off of that future album. I think. I've already forgotten.
You're right. You're right.
Okay. Ooh, keep saying that. Keep. Oh boy. Okay. So those 7 tracks were on disc 2 of the Liberty of Norton Folgate box set. And I think many of them are good songs in their own right. Nothing that's really, standalone kind of single material. But for a Madness collector, I think I can see why they would want to have these, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, as you know, anybody who noodles around online looking for rare Madness one-offs, oddities. Yeah, so if you've noodled around online looking for Madness rarities, there's really no shortage of them. Between tracks that didn't make albums, B-sides, the whole bit like that, bootlegs, there's a good site dedicated to just Madness bootlegs. Being a collector of many things myself, I'll never be satisfied knowing there's something out there that I don't have. So yeah, and I'm happy to have the box set too.
So if I'm not mistaken, Polly, the box set, which I do not own, is 3 CDs and then 1 vinyl LP. Is that correct?
Yes, and I don't have it in front of me. So the LP has, I think, only 12 of the tracks.
Oh, does it really?
So I can't off the top of my head, can't name what's missing from it.
This other bands have done this too, and this pisses me off. Why put CDs and vinyl in the same box set? I don't understand that, because if you're buying CDs, you probably aren't a collector who uses vinyl LPs. And if you're one of the hipsters that is back on this vinyl kick, you probably don't want the CDs. Why package all of these together and force people to buy both? That makes me, as a consumer, that makes me frustrated.
Yeah, I don't know that I can speak to that, especially since it was such a peculiar choice to not have all the tracks on LP.
They're in a very different order too on the LP. The Liberty of Norton Folgate was stuck right in the middle, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it's the last song on the first side. Boy, it would have been great if I would have just gotten that out. So I was looking at it.
No, that's okay. That's all right. I don't understand why bands do this. Except, unless it's a way to boost sales. I don't know. It's really kind of ironic. I mean, I'm old enough to remember vinyl records and how shitty they sound. Now all these hipsters are like, oh, it sounds better in vinyl. It sounds better on vinyl. No, it doesn't.
Yeah, I don't know that I can speak to that. I own a lot of vinyl, and if there's anything very precious to me, I make it a point to have it on vinyl. But my ears over the years have, I don't know that I can listen to anything and pick up the different levels of fidelity in it. So yeah, but that's maybe just me being old. But I tend to have a tendency to want to buy vinyl for the largeness of it and for the liner notes and things like that. So yeah, I can see your point. I can take it or leave it.
All right, and I'm sure I'm going to get lots of tweets and Facebook messages and emails about, what are you talking about? Vinyl is superior. Okay, whatever, dude.
Yeah, just don't lump me in with hipsters getting on the vinyl bandwagon on account of I never stopped since the 70s. Aside from my record collection getting stolen my freshman year of college. But so I guess you could say then, since 1989, I've really not stopped buying vinyl.
Okay, all right. And that's right around the time I gave up vinyl. All right, so now moving on. The next track that I want to play is, well, it's from that 12-track download that the band gave to people that pre-ordered the box set. So this is another version of On the Town. It is not the version that we listened to last episode. It's not the version that was on the final album. Let's listen.
Oh, it's early in the morning. It's raining and the streetlights streaming through my windows, casting shadows on the ceiling. The room is oh so empty. Stand against the wall. The clock is ticking loudly. It's deafening in this quiet room. The car is quietly passing. Oh, how long have I been waiting?
What am I to say? Inside I don't want to stay. Oh, 'cause I've been on the town, sick and tired of your frown.
I can hear you in the hallway, it's not unusual, you're there every day. Only now the hour's so late, every minute I've had to wait has been an eternity, but now you're back again with me. The clock says 5:15, now won't you tell me where you've been? Won't you tell me where you've been?
Okay, so Polly, I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on this one.
So the vocalist on there was Amber Jolene, and I do remember this version from a few years ago, and then I subsequently stopped, remembering to look for it because I've only seen it online, so I think I've listened to it on YouTube. But Amber Jolene, I tried looking up a little bit about her for this episode, and it would appear she's a bit of a gun for hire sort of thing. It's as though she mostly guests on other people's things, but maybe that's just because I didn't dig deep enough. But I was looking for actually any original material of hers, didn't really come up with anything. But what I find really endearing about her voice is her vocal delivery. Well, for one, it seems a great deal different than what I've found, like on YouTube, researching for this episode. But her vocal delivery almost goes into the Cockney spectrum on a lot of her track. So I find it really, really endearing. And I find it offers almost a little bit of a different context of the song, almost like she definitely sounds like she has a bit of a streetwise sort of I came up from nothing type of sound. And if you put that in your mind as going along with the narrative of the song, it's radically different than the Rhonda Dakar. So I like it. I think it's kind of cool.
Okay. And, and that kind of goes back to what I said in the last episode where I was kind of comparing this to Don't You Want Me by the Human League. I was working as a waitress in a cocktail bar. That much is true. But even then, I knew I'd find a much better place, either with or without you. And again, that's kind of goes along with what you were saying about here's this woman that's kind of brought herself up from nothing. And, it kind of has a different feel to it. Polly, you're gonna hate me for saying this, and you're gonna be mad. I like this version much better. I do not like the Rhoda Dakar version. I find her voice very nasally, and I know he's given me the look. I know she's two-tone royalty, and I get why they put that version on the album, but I will take this version over that version any day.
You'll get no argument from me. No, I don't necessarily favor this version over the album version. I'd say they both have their merits, and if you want to like this one better, you have my blessing. It's quite all right.
Okay, well, because I know you have very passionate feelings towards Rhoda Dakar, right?
Well, I did.
Oh, okay. I don't mean to imply anything that, Mrs. Polly is going to have to feel.
No. It's not as though I'm banking on running into Rhoda at some point.
So anyway, as we mentioned, this last tune that we listened to, this On the Town, that was a download that was part of that sampler of the album, and it was a reward for fans who had ponied up the cash early for the box set. So it was not available on any of the albums, either the CD or the box set. So that brings us to the Julian Temple film.
street, down to the cross where all the pipes might meet, to Somers Town where some things never stop, the Roundhouse American Bar in Camden Lock.
Okay, so the film. There's actually like a CD, DVD box set that was released, and the film is one of the discs. Again, this is one of those, I think it's Region 2 DVDs where you need an all-region DVD player. You can't play it on a standard American DVD player. But this was actually filmed prior to the release of the album. So for 3 nights, June 24th through 26th in 2008, Madness performed live shows at the historic Hackney Empire Theater, which was a stone's throw away from Norton Folgate. And they went all out for this show. I mean, they had performers, they had people in Victorian costumes. They were scattered among the crowd and in the gallery boxes. They were singing, they were juggling. At times they were heckling the show, but that was part of the show. It was interesting to me to read about this because this was at the time unreleased material. Other than the single NW5, most of the audience would not have heard this material. So imagine being a Madness fan in 2008 and hearing, oh, there's this exclusive 3-night show. And then showing up with no idea what to expect. And you have all these Victorian dressed performers everywhere. And this entire set, 3 acts of music that you've never heard before. In these shows, so the first set of the show was this unreleased material from the upcoming album, The Liberty of Norton Folgate. And after that, they played a second set with their classic Madness tunes from their first 4 albums. So, I mean, it's not to say that the people would have been leaving not hearing anything that they'd heard before. But for the crowd, this all would have been just completely new material. Polly, have you watched this film?
I've got the DVD, but like you said, it needs a region-free player. So I've seen it's segmented up on YouTube, so I have watched that.
So there's some real, I guess, anachronisms. So like there's 2 kids in the crowd dressed as the Blues Brothers, which to me, that just stands out like a sore thumb. It's like, what does that have to do with anything? But then I guess, you know, if you're going to a Madness show, you say, hey, I want to dress up as a character. Well, I guess the Blues Brothers are as good as anybody. But I mean, it's just really interesting to me. You know, I mean, the crowd is reacting very positively. And at one point during the Liberty of Norton Folgate, there's actually like almost like a mosh pit going on where I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if this footage is actually from this song or if this was from one of the part 2 songs where, you know, maybe they took that footage, because I cannot imagine fans who've never heard it before slamming into each other the way they were for the Liberty of Norton Folgate. That seems a little bit weird.
And also at the shows, well, at least 2 of them. So Rhoda Dakar did appear to perform with Madness at 2 of the 3 shows. And in grand music hall tradition, the show included an 8-piece orchestra. So there we go. We have the makings of the show right there. It was decided then that they would bring Julian Temple on to direct a documentary film of the show. Now, Julian Temple is the go-to guy for every reasonably awesome rock documentary, at least in the UK. His previous credits include The Great Rock and Roll Swindle, about Sex Pistols, as well as The Filth and the Fury. And recently, and I would recommend everybody seeing it, he directed Crock of Gold about Shane MacGowan from the Pogues, which is utterly fantastic. Julian Temple, by all means, has had the luxury of directing many, many documentaries about fantastic bands.
In 2009, 2008, I'm under the impression that he was a little bit controversial as a choice. The Great Rock and Roll Swindle and The Filth and the Fury, that actually kind of fizzled out. Audiences were upset by a lot of what took place with the Sex Pistols, and I think maybe it hurt his reputation a little bit. So it was really kind of an interesting choice.
Though he had past history, mischievous and past, a spunky little kid from Northwest Five, long for the mystery to last. Free as the wind, wild as a March hen. We've all so much to learn. Careful that you don't get burned. The boy who couldn't grow up, chasing his own tail. The boy who wouldn't grow up, and outing on bail. Oh, idiot child, just clutching to light. The boy who couldn't grow up, always made to shut up. Idiot child, just clutching to light. Always destined to fail, always winding up in jail.
So what ended up on the finished film, which is just over an hour long, the band played 12 songs off of what would eventually become the Liberty of Norton Folgate album. And it's divided neatly into 3 acts, which, Polly, as you alluded to in our previous episode, that's consistent with not just French opera, but I mean, that's consistent with a lot of very traditional theater, 3-act plays. I mean, that's very standard. Between the songs, and see, this is the part that I really enjoyed of this movie, is between the songs, we have Suggs and Carl wandering around in Victorian costume, taking us back in time to the London of Karl Marx and Jack the Ripper. And they have so many really beautifully written, almost poetic musings about the time and place that was the Liberty of Norton Folgate. They're humorously introducing the subject of each song, but they take us on a tour through the old East End, Spitalfields, Smithfield, Wapping, Bethnal Green, ending down on the beaches of the Thames beyond the Tower Bridge. I like that even more than the video footage. I mean, that might seem a little blasphemous, but I would have loved to just see just a documentary, even if there was no music to it, just Suggs and Carl, especially Carl doing that voice that he does, and we've talked
we know you like.
All right.
Carl's-
But it's really well executed, those parts. Those were my favorite parts of the film.
You can walk the entire length of Norton Folgate in a matter of minutes. And beneath your feet, through the soil, lies old London.
Barbins and florins, boot soles and bones, fragments of all kinds of crap, bits of old bombs sent from Berlin. The past is very close in Norton Folgate. It always has been.
Interesting that they chose Jack the Ripper as one of the characters. As Lori and I had mentioned, I don't know what, a couple of months ago or something like that. Of course, Liberty of Norton Folgate overlaps a bit with Whitechapel, and of course, Jack the Ripper being associated with Whitechapel. And it was not lost on me, being a comic book fan, having read From Hell, the amount of name dropping of areas in London that occurred during Liberty of Norton Folgate, and the amount of those that are referred to in the book From Hell. So it's an interesting read. If you want to look into that to see the connections for yourself, by all means do that. It's virtually exactly the same neighborhoods that everything in Norton Folgate is.
So let me tell you something about myself that you probably don't know, Polly.
Okay.
I am obsessed with serial killers, especially Jack the Ripper. And I have read just about everything that's been written on the subject. And I can tell you the good books, I can tell you the not so good books. But yeah, the first time I was listening to the Liberty of Norton Folgate, Spitalfields, Whitechapel, it's like, oh my gosh, this is Ripper territory, right? And man, if I ever do go to London, top of my list is that Jack the Ripper tour that they do. That's top of my list for sure. So, I have a number of like strange obsessions, and that happens to be one of them. So one other thing that Gillian Temple does, back to the subject of the film, one other thing he does that I kind of like is after he filmed the concert footage, he then he went out onto the streets of London at night and projected the footage like onto walls and bridges and like an old cinema and a bunch of other stuff. And then he filmed the footage being played on like the sides of the buildings. And it's interesting, it becomes very meta, that it's like we're watching a film of the film. But one of the things that Julian Temple had written about why he did this, he said, as a result, the concert reaches out into the city, allowing Madness to perform their songs about London's past on parts of the city which have survived into the present, to a passing flow of modern Londoners below. So the idea of past and present being superimposed upon each other and existing simultaneously. The idea that, the space that people are passing through now, right, is the same space that these characters had passed through in Victorian times, the same space that Jack the Ripper had hunted in. And that was really an interesting technique. And I mean, I think in the context of this film, I think it really works.
There's a Mark II parked on the cobbles of a Chelsea museum. Out of the shadows steps a figure, silver mohair bright, into the moonshine, out into the night.
Any other thoughts about the film, Polly?
Yeah, well, I think it's a nice companion piece to the album, certainly. And I would suggest everybody see it. And that would bring us to the end of another episode. After we're done saying our goodbyes, we're going to leave you with a cover of MW5 by Maddie Carty. And there you go. We have had a fantastic time over the last two episodes reviewing the Liberty of Norton Folgate. And like Lori said, it'll go down as one of the best Magnus albums of all time. We hope you enjoyed it.
And please tune in 2 weeks. So the next episode that we're planning, barring any unexpected surprises, we're going to do an episode about Madness B-sides. So I'm really looking forward to that one. Polly, I know you are as well.
That I am. Yeah, a little bit of the lesser known stuff. But nonetheless, there'll be an awful lot on there that people are familiar with too. So don't be discouraged or intimidated. You'll find it all quite familiar.
All right. So on that note, thank you for listening. Goodbye from me.
And goodbye for me. Go get a beer, Stateside Madness.
I would give you everything just to see the smile you bring. I would give you everything for just a song to sing. I would give you everything just to see the smile you bring. I would give you everything for just a song to sing. Watched you grow up only to despise. I seen the madness stack up through tarpaulin eyes. very strange disguise. And though you have become a burden, one thing remains, that's for certain. I will love you all my life, but without you in my life. Oh, I watched you climb up, I seen you come alive. From them very humble beginnings in NW5. And though we face the final curtain, one thing remains, that's for certain. I will love you all my life, but without you in my life. And I would give you everything for just the smile you bring, for just the song to sing. And I would give you everything for just the smile you bring, for just the song to sing. I sing now. Yes, I watched you grow up only to despise. Witness the blessing rise up in a very strange disguise. And nothing it seems lasts forever.